I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of pressure at the moment coming from all angles. I can't imagine not being involved and spearheading Monk. My goal is absolutely for this to be a £1 billion business, and I will serve that in any way where I can most add value.
Today we've got Laura Fullerton, founder of Monk.
Someone actually called it the other day the love child of Apple and Dyson, which I was super happy with. Started as this passion project, and I had no idea how to run or build a business. You know, people say you just jump off a cliff and it's like building a plane on the way down. It was absolutely like that. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was just so excited and passionate about it.
Welcome to FounderMetrics by Vested, the podcast where we dive into the world of hotshot business leaders and the specific metrics, not just the usual KPIs, that drive their game-changing companies forward. I'm your host, Ifti Nasser, CEO and founder of Vested, and I'm excited to take you on this journey with me into the world of successful founders. Good morning. My name is Ifti Nasser and this is FounderMetrics. Today we've got Laura Fullerton, the founder of Monk, which we'll talk about in a little bit more. But Laura, do you want to give us a quick intro to you, the person, before we go into Monk itself?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. I'm Laura Fullerton, the founder and CEO of Monk. And it's actually very hard to talk about myself without automatically going into Monk. But just to give you...
Before Monk.
Before Monk, okay. So I started off my career in the world of advertising. Very much in the creative side of things. I was a copywriter, worked for some amazing agencies, but I always had that itch. You know, you just want to do your own thing.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of businesses now. My first one was a health and fitness subscription box. I then went on and had a really rogue move into commercial property, and worked or consulted for a few companies very much in the health and biohacking space, which kind of paints the picture as to how I ended up in Monk. And then ends up starting Monk, my third venture.
Brilliant. So tell us about those first two ventures to start off with, because we're talking to founders, we're helping them understand how to gauge their businesses, see how to know when to intervene, when to let it flow, etc. So those two other businesses, tell me about what happened, the good, the bad and the ugly in summary.
Gosh, I would say it was a whirlwind. It started as this passion project and I had no idea how to run or build a business. You know, people say you just jump off a cliff and it's like building a plane on the way down. It was absolutely like that. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was just so excited and passionate about it. It was a health and fitness subscription box. I think at our peak we were doing, maybe it was 160 boxes a month. It was never large by any means. And it was just like doing a degree, really. It's just hands-on learning. And it got to a point where I had no idea how to scale it. It was just myself in the business. And we had a fulfillment partner, so I had some help. But actually, even getting to that bit was quite interesting. So I managed to get a deal with Reebok, Spartan Race. And they ordered, I think it was 200 boxes for this event. And it doesn't sound like much, but suddenly I had 1.5 tons of stock delivered to my apartment, had to carry it up 3 flights of stairs, rearrange it all, bribe a postman to come and pick it up. And there was a point, it was 3 a.m, and I was laying on the floor crying because my back hurt so much for packing all these boxes. And I just knew I think it was 110 left. And I just thought, how am I going to carry on? And that was like that breaking point where I realized I needed help. And I think that is probably quite reflective of like the whole business journey. Yeah. I was just winging it and it was amazing and I learned so much.
But I think that's the interesting thing about entrepreneurs in general. They have to be able to wing and they have to be able to muck in. I mean, anything that suggests, I shouldn't be traipsing boxes up the stairs. I'm the founder. The fact is, you have to do it because at the end of the day, nobody else is going to.
And it's the least glamorous job you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
But you have to just get stuck in. And anyway, it got to the point with that business where I think because it was my first business, so much of my personality was tied up in it. I thought, if I'm not Laura running Fitty, like who am I? And it got to the point where I just didn't know what to do with it. And I remember so clearly I was skiing with my partner at the time, and I just thought, I can't do this anymore. And I decided in that moment, I'll either sell it or I'll just dissolve it. I almost didn't care what would happen to it. I was kind of just over that part of my life. Yeah. And I found a guy who bought it, which was great.
So you had a proper exit, your first exit.
The thing is, I never feel like I can say, oh, I've had an exit. Or people, they really glamorize it and say, yeah, I sold a business. But I mean, it wasn't successful. I took so much from it in terms of learnings, which I then have just implemented in further businesses. But yeah, I think to sit here and say like, oh yeah, I've had 2 exits, it just, yeah.
Well, I think you can be philosophical about it as well. I mean, on the first hand, you've said that you learned so much, and that's something that you've taken from that first business, but you've also let go of it. And I guess that for me is part of the exit conversation, knowing when to let go and move on, because you can keep beating yourself up and going nowhere. To know when to move on is a really important thing, and maybe we'll pick up on that with the second one. So the second venture.
Yes, so really rogue move into commercial property. It was with
because
a
you
friend.
Knew everything about commercial property, didn't you, when you started?
I knew nothing, absolutely nothing. I'd never run a service business before, but it just seemed like a good idea at the time. And my friend who I was starting with that was his background. And yeah, do you know what? It was doing really well until COVID hit. And as you can imagine, the last thing any business wanted was commercial space. Yeah, exactly. But actually, we started doing well coming out the other side of it. But it was at the time where I had Monk and, health and wellness, like that's my real passion. And I tried to kind of shoehorn it into the previous business, but it just didn't really work. And yeah, it got to the point I thought, I need to bring Monk to life. That's got to be my sole focus. And so I managed to get bought out of that business.
So it was another exit insofar as it was somebody gave money for the thing that you had created.
Yes, yeah.
Which is brilliant. And that gave you the opportunity to get into Monk. So tell us about Monk.
So it is a health tech startup. And we're really just trying to get more people into cold water therapy because it's the most phenomenal way to, take care of your mental, physical, and emotional health. So we're launching the first smart ice bath and cold water therapy app. And have you done an ice bath?
I have done there was a trend about 5 years ago when people put ice buckets over people. Yeah. So that's the closest to ice, but I have gone into very cold water at various spas, but I think there's a lot more to it than what I know about it. But let's go first into the whole philosophy about the ice bath, because it sounds scary, really, doesn't it? When people talk about everybody knows about people like Andy Murray, for instance, having an ice bath after a game. So tell me more about these health benefits that you believe.
So I think to your point, people have associated athletes with ice baths for decades because they've been using it for, muscle recovery and also before they go and train, etc. But I think it's making such a comeback now. And this is the interesting thing about it. There's nothing new about it.
I didn't know that it was out there before.
Yeah. So it dates back to 5000 BC. You had like Hippocrates, Plato, all touting about the benefits of cold water. And interestingly, to your point about spas, that's actually how spas evolved. Like cold water was at the heart of it. And it's only over time, we just want to be comfortable and warm. And so the cold water side of things kind of dropped off and, you have more hot tubs and warm water. But now there's just more and more research coming out, which I think is really just fueling it. It's scientifically proven to boost immunity. There's actually fascinating research happening at the moment at the University of Cambridge, and it's showing that it's neuroprotective. So it can,
What's that mean?
So it can essentially slow and potentially reverse some neurodegenerative diseases. So they've been looking at Parkinson's and prions disease.
Wow.
Yeah, which is wild. It's by using cold water, you can positively impact your brain health. It blows my mind.
That's brilliant. We'll maybe explore that a little bit further. But let's get... So you're doing a med tech startup that's all around a new way of looking at or reinvigorating the whole idea of the ice bath, which is a good way of describing it. What's Monk? Where did the term or the brand Monk come from?
So I wanted a name that reflected that, this is an ancient practice.
Yeah,
as I say, there's nothing new about it, but we're just kind of bringing it into the 21st century with engineering. And so I was thinking about all sorts of names that touched on that. And I remember saying the name Monk, and then I thought, forget it, throw it away. And my friend was really excited. He was like, no, I think that's it. And we got super excited. And also the thing I love about Monk is that when you look at monks, it takes discipline, focus, and inner strength. And they're all qualities you need to get through an ice bath because, it's not always the most exciting thought of getting into freezing cold water. But anyway, we got really excited about this name. And then the next morning, he sent me a picture and he just said, I kid you not, I didn't order it. There's no note, no sender. And it was the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
Right.
So I just thought, there's got to be a sign. Unfortunately, the name was available. So yeah, I just snapped it up.
Brilliant. So describe the ice bath, because I guess in my own mind, and the pictures that you see just a straightforward old bathtub and somebody's pouring loads of ice into it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's more sophisticated versions that you get in the spas where there's some cooling mechanism. But what you've got is really cool.
Thank you.
Just to look at it is cool.
I appreciate that. Someone actually called it the other day the love child of Apple and Dyson, which I was super happy with.
Yep, I can see where that came from.
But yeah, I wanted to design something that would, fit beautifully into hotels. You can imagine it in a Soho house as well as in your home because, so many of them, they look like massive chest freezers. And if I was designing something from scratch, I also want it to be beautiful. You want it to be, aesthetically beautiful as well as having all the top functionality. So there's two sides of it. There's the hardware and the software. But for the ice bath, by itself, it looks really beautiful, but also has the real premium functionality. There's an integrated cooling unit. You can control the temperature, all that kind of stuff you'd expect. And then it's got all the bells and whistles. So we use something called ozone sanitization. Mm-hmm. Similar, it's more potent than chlorine, but there's no chemicals or any toxins, anything like that. People don't really want that on their skin nowadays. And ozone's also become like the gold standard of treating cold water. So some of the Olympic pools will now be switching to ozone. There's like an internal light that guides you how to breathe. There's a timer on it and just all these little things that really make the experience much more enjoyable.
Because certainly I can see where the Apple piece comes, both top-end functionality and aesthetically very, very pleasing. The business is going. Tell me where you are at the moment in terms of the stage of the business. You've had some investment rounds. Do you want to just tell us about that investment journey and what's now expected on the horizon for you? Yeah,
so we're just going into manufacturing now, which is a super exciting time because after 2.5 years of product development, it's finally coming to life. But as I was saying earlier, I'd never worked on a physical product like this before. And so it was clear from day one that we were going to need to raise money because, hardware is expensive. So we went out to raise our seed round and we raised 485,000 from just the most amazing collection of individuals. I've been so fortunate with the people we've managed to bring on, and also fundraising at that stage. You're raising on a piece of paper. It's an idea.
You just come out of commercial property.
Yeah, exactly. People are like, have you built hardware or software before? Nope. But yeah, we had everyone from multi-billion-pound founders, technologists, athletes, who've really come to the table and helped us move the needle.
Why do you think they came on that first seed round? Why? What brought them to the table, given your personal track record and the immediate business that you just had before? How did they buy into it?
I think most people have been really passionate about ice baths or cold water therapy. I think, there's so many indicators that this is going to be a huge movement. I think it was just clear that there was space for something new here.
I think you're right. And I think, what you've found and what you've done, and certainly all the stuff that I've seen shows that you were, the time was right and you've brought something to the table that does the job. But why did people believe that you could? Given, as I say, success in business, usually you've got some cred in the field, you've had some experience in the thing that needs to be done next, whether it's the manufacturing or the software development.
Yeah.
Some of those weren't quite there, were they, Laura? So how did you manage to do it? Was it just the vision?
I think they were in other ways. I think partly the vision, but also I guess I'm slightly selling myself short in that I've done a lot in the kind of health optimization, biohacking space. So I really understand the market and, the early adopters. I am one of them.
Yeah.
So I really understand, I guess, the problem we're trying to solve. I think also, vision. I think a lot makes up for not having done the exact thing you're going to do before. Because also, no one's born having run a P&L, right? No. It doesn't happen. At some point, it's got to be the first time you're doing something. So yeah, I think a little bit of audacity also goes a long way.
Absolutely, and you're right. No founder has ever found a business before they have that first founding moment. But so you got that initial investment, just short of $500,000. What did you do with it?
So really, the majority of it went into R&D, actually, like straight into product development. And then we had a couple of prototypes, looks like, works like, and we've now got three working prototypes and just going into production. But along that journey, we knew we were going to have to raise our seed round. And by that point, there were we'd actually produced something, which made it a completely different conversation because people can actually see and feel it. And, it's not just about the product as well, but we were really lucky in that we had a lot of publicity. So we'd been in GQ, The Times, Vogue, The Telegraph, and
Fantastic.
A lot of people were just really excited about it. So we had a lot of, really good things behind us, which actually made, I'd say actually, it made the seed round a lot easier, but we've just been in the worst fundraising climate in over a decade, so it was actually very tough, like especially at the beginning of last year. Towards the end, things got a lot easier. But yeah, we've just raised our seeds. We hit our target of 2 million, which is very exciting. Yeah.
So that gets you all set now for the manufacturing piece, as you mentioned. But just before that, when you did your first prototypes, were they just plastic bowls with an understanding that you will be able to get all that high-end functionality in there, or were they actually living, breathing baths in the latest prototype when you were going for the seed?
So we've had all sorts. So the very first ones we created, I wouldn't even call them prototypes, but it was when we were at the very beginning in like the design phase or the concept phase, and we're thinking, is this like a lie down bath or is it an upright? And we just made these out of wood and material. Like they were so rough and ready. It was unbelievable. But even that was so helpful because we just got, maybe it was 30 people just to enter them as if they were about to get into them. Imagine their actual bath full of cold water. And it was completely different to what we thought. I envisioned this as being more of a stand-up, kind of upright ice bath. Yeah. And actually, when people went to get into it, it felt quite scary. You've got to climb up into something and you're looking down into this freezing water. And yeah, it was very scary to people. But then equally, having like a proper long lie down one didn't feel right either, because it's not like you're in a relaxing bath and you're just kind of like laying there and soaking it all in. You're tense. It's not particularly nice. And we ended up creating this hybrid where it's the shape of our current bath now. It's between the two. So you feel very kind of safe and cocooned, which interestingly, it's whenever people get in Monk, it's one of the first things or the most common things that people say. They feel safe and cocooned, which is weird when you're talking about getting into something so uncomfortable as really cold water. But yes, we had prototypes like that, and then we had working prototypes, and also in between those we had wheelie bins with insulation around them and millions of wires going on because we'd be testing different things. And then we got to the works like prototype and the looks like prototype, and so yeah, we've had a whole spectrum of them.
So when did you know you were ready to go to the next stage? What was that gave you that confidence? Had you actually built a full working prototype and it was ready and you now knew I need X million to go? Had you already found your manufacturer at this stage when you went out for the money, or was it we need to get the money and then we can go talk to a manufacturer? And where did you find your manufacturer? Because I mean, nobody's done one of these before. This is new. So how do you know that you've got somebody who's going to play ball with you, is willing to take you seriously rather than just somebody who's got an interesting idea?
Mm-hmm. So I think, it was an ongoing process in terms of, okay, we need to raise money now. Like we didn't have things figured out like the manufacturer. We had an idea of who they could be, but there were a lot of things we didn't have drilled down. And I think we were also just taking investors on this journey with us. Like from before we went and raised that first round, we knew like this is our product development plan. These are the phases. This is how long it's going to take and this is how much it's going to cost. And inevitably, people always say with hardware, however long you think it's going to take, triple the timeline and double the cost. And I was so confident. I was like, this is not going to happen to us. And absolute textbook. That is exactly what has happened. So I feel like we've just discovered a lot of things as we've gone along. But yeah, essentially we didn't have a lot of things locked in. I believe we had the working prototype, or at least the looks like prototype that was supposed to be works like, but we still had a lot of issues with it when people were starting to invest in our seed. And the manufacturing's been an interesting one. Because we've actually changed even the product development agency. The agency who started out were fantastic at that early concept generation. Like the
Where
reason,
was it based? Here in the UK?
Yeah,
or?
in Bristol, yeah.
Right.
The reason Monk looks like Monk is because of what they did, which was brilliant. But it got to the point where we felt like there was another agency who were better at the kind of the engineering side of things to actually bring a product to market that is mass manufacturable at scale, which obviously is the key for what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So we ended up switching partner to them, and they had the ability to manufacture, but one of my current investors introduced me to the two founders of Reform RX, which is this amazing smart reformer Pilates machine.
Right.
And it's actually, although it's a very different product, it's similar market, similar price point. It's actually more complicated than Monk in terms of the product itself. But we took so many learnings from them, and they had such a good experience with their manufacturing partner that we actually ended up switching to their manufacturing partner. So yeah, we're just going through the whole exciting phase of manufacturing at the moment.
So where are you on that phase? Because you've said that you've now found a
Yes.
manufacturer.
Yeah. So we're now in that process. So we're just about to have the first samples really being
Of
produced
the
actual final product. So I was so we're having it manufactured in Ningbo in China.
Right.
And I was out there a few weeks ago. I'm going to go back in probably about 2 to 3 weeks and fingers crossed, approve those samples that come off the production line.
So exciting.
Yeah,
So
it is.
exciting. So have you got an order book at the moment? Have you got people on the wait list? How long is that wait list, and how do you feel about the pressure that having a wait list actually puts on a founder?
Yeah, there is. I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of pressure at the moment coming from all angles. So we went live with a pre-order campaign in February.
Right.
And so, I mean, we financed the full, our first production run with the investment we've raised. And yeah, we put in our first PO of 250 units. So we're just working through.
250 units. Is that as per the order book, or is it a little bit more, or a little bit less?
No, a little bit more. So we started building our wait list throughout, over the last couple of years, really. I mean, we've got just over 3,000 people on it, but they haven't all converted and put down their orders yet.
Right.
It'd be great if they do. But that's one thing we're working
even
on.
if it was a small deposit, it just gives that confidence to use the founder. It's not just people saying, yeah, it's a great idea, Laura.
Yeah.
Good luck. It's when people are willing to put money on the table, even if it's a small proportion, it does make a big difference to how you feel.
It's funny you mentioned deposits, because this has been the bane of my life for a little while. So we thought we can just launch a deposit scheme. People can put down, I don't know, £500, secure their unit. But actually,
So how much is a unit? Just
5,000.
5,000.
Well, full retail price would be 6,000. We're doing a pre-order discount. But the issue we've had is that because it's such a high price point, we couldn't do some sort of like Klarna Pay in 3. Like that wasn't available to us unless we're regulated by the FCA.
Right.
And we've tried so many different things, but yeah, we can do Klarna Pay in 30, but we can't offer the payment terms we want. Also, without having 12 months trading history, you're so limited. So we're now going through the process of getting regulated by the FCA so we can in future offer much better payment terms for our customers. But it's these little things you just don't foresee. You think, yeah, we're just going to go live with pre-orders next week and it's going to be great. And then,
That's
hurdles.
actually quite amazing. We could go off on a whole different angle on that in relation to being regulated by the FCA for, building an ice bath. But it's more around the financing of that and it's interesting. So have you started that journey with the FCA?
Yeah, we've just started that, But it means at the moment, people are putting down their pre-orders, but they've got to pay 100% up front for a product they're not going to see for a couple of months.
Yeah.
So it's a big ask. But yeah, when your hands are tied and you've just got to do what you can.
Yeah. No, I think that will be interesting. So you're going to get directly authorised, or is it going to be some sort of authorised representative for somebody else that you'll use for your FCA cover, as it were?
Just going straight through with the FCA. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Good luck. Seriously, that's an interesting journey. We did it ourselves, so we learned a lot from that process itself. But it also gives you a lot of credibility and trust once you've got that badge. So in terms of where you are now, you said there was pressure from other people, never mind just the prospective customers and the order list, as it were. What is the other pressures that you're feeling as a founder?
Gosh, I mean, as the CEO, the buck always stops with you, right? And when you're going through manufacturing, there's always going to be problems that arise. Like we had a problem recently with our PCBs, the printed circuit boards, which are, for anyone listening, it's like the backbone of any electronic device, with components shortages. And that's had an impact on our lead times. And it's essentially delayed everything for 6 weeks, which doesn't sound much, but when you're wanting to bring a product to market and then you've got to let all those customers know, and then you've got investors, and there's just a lot of people who really want us to deliver Monk. And obviously I want that more than anyone in the world. But yeah, it's constant, and it's a lot.
Coming back to, you've got your monks on the plane, they're heading over to the UK. How are you going to use those initial products? Are they going to be in Harrods? Are they going to be just used for displays that you go? How are you going to start lifting that marketing game on the arrival of those first?
So the very first ones, they're actually all going to customers. So we have a couple of working prototypes in the UK at the moment. We've actually just taken one to Fairmont over in Windsor Park. So they're our first commercial partner.
Fantastic.
I'm really excited about that because, once you have it somewhere and so many people can see it, it acts as a showroom.
It becomes real.
And it was so exciting. We had a launch party there last week. And just people seeing it for the first time is incredible. And I think it's so easy when, I'm so ingrained in the business and what's the saying? You can't see the wood from the trees.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to take a step back and see people see it and experience it for the first time is amazing. And it makes you realise, wow, the world hasn't seen Monk yet.
Yeah,
and, so
and that wow factor when they see the thing and you just see their... I think I just think about my own reaction when I saw Monk. I thought, wow.
Oh,
and so to be able to see that in an audience of folk when it's revealed, as it were, must have been amazing for you.
Yeah, it's great. It's really, really great. And also, I love seeing people who are terrified of the cold do it and realise actually how capable they are, and then how good they feel after. It's the best thing.
So going back to the product itself, how are you going to market it? Is it going to be through GQ you were talking about earlier, or is it going to be in high-end stores, or is it literally just by people being able to see them in top-end spas? What's the game plan?
It's a mix of all. So we've got, there's two sides to it. There's the D2C side and the B2B side. So in terms of D2C, we've got 4 key audiences. So one, you've got the biohackers, who are the weird people like me who are just obsessed with health and love seeing everything through data. You've got the high performers, who are your typical, like your C-suites, your Tim Ferriss, Tony Robbins, like James Watt, actually, one of our investors I mentioned. You've then got who we call the Wim Warriors. These are people already doing some sort of cold water and likely breath work as well. Maybe they have a DIY solution. They're looking to kind of up their game. And then you have the athletes. The aspiration, we call them the aspirational athletes, because the athletes in their own right don't necessarily make the purchasing decisions themselves. They're almost more B2B, but these are the people that have full-time jobs, but they might take all their holiday and go and do an Ironman in Portugal, that kind of thing. So how we market to each of them really differs per segment. But I think one of the great things about Monk is it's such an experiential product. You want people to see it and to feel it. So things like shows, we're going to be at the Health Optimization Summit in a few months, which is just full of the biohackers. But the marketing's where I get super excited, partly because it's my background,
exactly.
but in a consumer product like this, I think.
So do you need a Wim Hof to be on the team?
No, I wouldn't say a Wim Hof himself.
Yeah.
So this is slightly controversial, but I love Wim. What he's done for the market is incredible. He teaches you how to breathe, and he teaches you how to do the cold, but I just wouldn't want anyone to be doing his breath work before you get straight into the cold. And that's because, when you get into cold water, you have that initial gasp reflex where you're like, and it forces you to breathe short and shallow and sharp, and you essentially, it takes your breath away. And the thing that you want to do is to overcome that. And you do that by breathing slow, long exhales. And it forces you, or you want to basically get into a parasympathetic state, which is your, rest and digest. you're trying to overcome hyperventilating. So the last thing you want to do is hyperventilate before you get into the bath. Yeah. And that's where it can get dangerous and people can, you can black out. And the last place you want to do that is in cold water. So for Monk, like the key goal is to teach people how to do it safely and effectively. And I think there are much safer ways to prepare for cold.
Okay, so who would be your ideal advocate?
Oh, gosh. Oh, so many. I mean, I look at it very logically from each of those kind of sectors or segments I mentioned. Like for athletes, for example, we've got Anthony Joshua, who's one of our investors.
Unbelievable to have him on board.
We did a shoot with him recently, and it's just so exciting. I was actually reviewing a couple of the videos that have come out of it the other day, so I'm getting that out, and to your question about marketing, things like that.
Fantastic. So timeline is that the main shipment is going to be here when? September.
Yes.
And we'll have circa 250 happy receivers of their pods. And then what next? Because, I mean, that is, as you say, just the start.
Yeah.
How do you then decide? What are the things that are going to help you understand how you're going to scale next? So obviously it'll come back to funding rounds, etc. How easily or how quickly? It sounds like you've already got this 250 sold anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it'll be the experience that you've had with manufacturing as to how quickly you ramp that up. But what are the gauges? What are the signals that are going to help you understand how you're going to do that next stage? What are you looking for before you go into that test?
So, well, I guess it's quite handy to talk about our launch market. So it's UK and US, but to start, we're focusing on the UK, but we want to be in the US as soon as we can. We just know it's going to be our biggest market. Yeah, not only because the country's huge, but typically people say the US is 5 years ahead when it comes to health and fitness, and we know our customers are there. And we've already got quite a lot of traction coming from there. So the plan is to follow this first order, as in our first PO, with the second, and really be focusing predominantly on the US for that. And I think one of the things that has and will work really well for us is having certain influencers, like having Anthony Joshua for the athletes, but actually potentially having a female. And also I think the way this works so effectively is, funnily enough, things like growth shares, and actually having these people as more than just ambassadors, but part of the company. So yeah, I mean, our goal really right now, just laser focus on getting product in market and then rolling it out.
I'm pleased you mentioned the growth shares, because what better way to get advocates truly vested in your game? And I think it's a phenomenal use case. We'll probably put a piece together in due course on Monk and how they used growth shares to work. And yeah, you're quite distinct in terms of the routes to market, the design, etc. But just as with earpods and stuff, you'll have fast followers very quickly. How do you think that you're going to be able to address that? And often you get I suspect it won't be the case with your manufacturers, but where they have a spare capacity and they just pump out a few of these freebies or lower cost products.
Yeah, I think it's always going to be a challenge with product. I think one of the things that really separates companies here is brand. And I always used to worry saying that, thinking it sounds like such a weak response. But actually, when you're talking about consumer products like this, brand is really everything. Like, have you heard of Apex?
Yes.
The bike. Yeah, so a lot of people haven't, and people don't realise that, let's say Peloton, market leader, they're out in the market, and Apex see it, they can take it apart, and you can look at how it's built, and you can just tweak it slightly and bring your own to market, but it's going to be 2 years later after spending, $1 million on R&D, and if you don't have that brand, you're just not going to have that impact. And I think, you see that time and time again, but I think just you can focus so much on the competition. Of course, you can do as much as you can to protect your company, but really, you've just got to be focused on creating something that is so much better.
And keep staying ahead of the game.
Yeah, that actually answers your customers' problems. And I think also that comes back to having, as soon as we have product out in market, all we want to be doing is have really tight feedback loops so we can, see where we can improve. And
So how big's the team now, Laura?
We're really small. So full time, there's just 3 of us. But then we've got a wider fractional team. So really, there's 6 of us on the core team.
That is amazing. Yeah, having raised 500,000, then 2 million, and having the people that you've got on board with just a handful of folk.
Yeah.
That's very impressive. Does it feel a
Thank
bit
you.
scary?
Yeah, terrifying.
So when do you feel that you're going to need to scale up that horsepower in the core team? Because as you said earlier on, I'm not sure whether it was before we started recording, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with the CEO, with the founder.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've got it forecast out when we're going to have these next hires. We know roughly who they are. But honestly, even 3 weeks ago, there was only 2 of us on the full-time team.
Yeah.
So we've been doing everything with just such a small team. And I was actually talking to someone about this the other day. I had a few funds who were interested in investing. They said, look, we just never invest in a solo founder, which is completely valid. And if I could redo Monk again, I would absolutely have a co-founder. And I wanted one at the time, but there just wasn't the right person there. And I thought, maybe I could bring someone in to just retrofit it, have a co-founder. But actually, they didn't exist. But I remember sitting down with one guy who was my first real investor. And we mapped it out and said, okay, right, if I don't have a co-founder, how can I get the support of having one without actually having one? And this is why and how we managed to bring people to the table like James Watt. And we've got some phenomenal people who they're more, I guess, almost like fractional people in the business, like really hands-on and have really helped me, whether that's marketing or product. We just
and it's a good use for conditional shares, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it has been. But do you know what? That's what we've done with advisors, and it's been fantastic. But the reason actually I discovered Vested in the first place wasn't because of that. I was looking for an EMI scheme. And then, I then discovered that we could do all these other things with it. And being a startup, one of the things we not struggled with, but the lawyers we found who helped with our first raise, I think we got an amazing deal. I think they did the whole thing for 5,000. But we also got, obviously they gave us a reduced rate, but we also got a reduced service. And I felt like I was always in that a really difficult space where I know I'm not getting particularly good service.
But you get it cheap.
You get it cheap, yeah. And it would be things like wanting to issue share certificates, or if I need to get a new resolution, I just have to wait like a week or so to do this. And I'd have to give them all the information that I could just put on a share certificate myself. And it was just, this frustration. So,
Well, I'm pleased that we've been able to help you, Laura.
Yes.
I think it's an amazing journey ahead. But what about for you? All this stress of getting that first 250 out, what's going to happen with you at the end of that once that's landed? Are you going to feel a sense of relief and try and find some time for yourself, or is that just the adrenaline injection that you need to just go even harder into the game?
The latter. I'll also breathe a sigh of relief. I think, it is so important to celebrate all the small milestones.
Especially given what you were saying earlier about biohacking and so on, there must be stuff that you need to be doing from a human perspective for yourself. So just tell me, when that happens, what would you, because all founders will have loads of ups and downs, but what we're talking about here is a pivotal point for you.
Yeah.
So from a biohacking perspective, what would you tell your fellow founders in the world where they hit that sort of moment? What do they do? Is they supposed to sit back and just reflect, or are they supposed to go, okay, so now what would your guidance to them be?
I think it's a mix of both. So what I really want to do, as soon as that day comes where we're shipping units to customers and, we have great reviews, like the team and I would celebrate, but I would do something that's very holistic. So we'd go to like a Russian banya where we can do like cold and hot, and, we'll go and have IVs. I always, I guess the reason we started Monk is it is all related to mental, physical and emotional health. And we've really got to live and breathe that. We'd celebrate, but in a healthy way and just continue.
Brilliant. And so 5 years from now, what's your vision? 5 years from now, where's Monk?
Honestly, we're building Monk to exit. I think that will come in that particular exit will be from a much larger company who either want to move into this space. So we had a potential acquisition recently, which was the exact acquisition I think would happen, but it was just like 3 years earlier than expected. And that was someone there, like one of the largest hot tub manufacturers, but they really wanted to move into the ice bath space. So I think something like that, or it would come from someone who owns, some like the much broader health continuum, whether that's like a Whoop or someone like that. So when I look at a lot of the acquisitions that's happened, it's always in companies that own data. Like, they'll acquire a company that specialises in weightlifting data, or it's a smart yoga mat, and it's that kind of thing. And with what we're actually building with Monk, it's not just the beautiful hardware, but it's the largest database of cold water therapy data.
Yeah.
So I think we'd be a very lucrative company.
That's amazing that you've actually built the business for an exit, and it sounds like you've even got some prospective acquirers in mind already. No doubt you're keeping up to speed with how
with our
things are
progress.
evolving.
So I would love an exit event to happen at that point, but I can't imagine not being involved and spearheading Monk. My goal is absolutely for this to be a £1 billion business. And I will serve that in any way where I can most add value.
Well, that's brilliant. I'm really pleased that we're able to support you on this journey, Laura, and wish you all the luck. It's a brilliant endeavour.
Thank you.
And thank you again for joining us and sharing your journey with FounderMetrics. Thank you for joining us on this episode of FounderMetrics. Remember, the biggest of ambitions are within reach when you leverage the right metrics and strategies. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and never miss out on any future ones. And don't forget to visit us on www.vested.com for additional resources, articles, and exclusive content. Join our growing community of entrepreneurs and founders by following us on LinkedIn, Twitter, X, and Instagram. We'd love to hear your thoughts and insights. Together, let's continue to unlock and share the metrics of success and create a brighter future.